quiet Sunday on a little island off the eastern shore of Canada is rocked by an explosion powerful enough to shatter glass and shake the earth, and brighter than the explosion at Hiroshima. An event so big it still reverberates in scientific circles to this day. Welcome to the In-Between. I'm Carol Ann, and in this episode, we're taking a trip to the northern reaches of the Atlantic coastline to investigate the Belle Island boom. Sunday, April 2nd, 1978 is like any other spring Sunday on Belle Island, a little island on the easternmost edge of the Newfoundland and Labrador province of Canada. It's just before 11 a.m. and 12-year-old Darren Bickford is already up and out and about. But at this moment, he's pedaling his bike as fast as he can to get home because his favorite TV show is about to start. As he gets to the end of his driveway, he notices that all the birds have stopped chirping and all the dogs have stopped barking. Everything has gone still. But before he has a chance to process this tidbit of potentially important information, a deafening boom rings out, followed closely by a second, followed again by a much bigger, ground-shaking third boom. As Darren is trying to make sense of the booms, he sees a flash that is brighter than anything he has ever seen as a 3-foot wide ball of light forms out of thin air right in front of him. The sphere is blue with yellow and orange around the edges. It hovers for a few seconds before vanishing.
It was all over in 4 or 5 seconds. But those 4 or 5 seconds are burnt into my brain just like a roll of film.
When all is said and done, the Bickford homestead, which seems to be the epicenter of whatever happened there, has holes in the house where it looks like something has passed through, glass electrical fuses that have shot out of the fuse box and embedded themselves into the other end of the hall 20 feet away, a blown up TV set, a crumpled chicken coop, a couple of dozen dead chickens, and 3 new holes several feet deep in their backyard. But that's not exactly the beginning of the story. Starting in December of 1977, so 4 months earlier, people along the Atlantic coast, starting from New Jersey down to South Carolina, started hearing booms in the sky loud enough to shake their homes. Some as loud as an oil refinery explosion. The booms eventually were heard all up and down the eastern seaboard. President Carter, who's just started his term, looks at the Defense Department and says, "Figure this out." And they did, or at least they claim they did. 3 months and 600 to 700 booms later, they come out with a report that essentially says it's the Concorde. For those of you younger than I am, the Concorde was a commercial supersonic plane that could fly at twice the speed of sound. And what happens when planes fly faster than sound? A boom. So essentially, the Defense Department said that the Concorde and other supersonic aircraft flying up and down the coast were creating these sonic booms. The only problem with that theory is that the Concorde started flying a full year before the booms started to happen. And the military could not account for all of the booms with the schedule of supersonic flights. At best, their explanation covered about 2/3 of the incidents. And of those 2/3, the military claimed that even though there wasn't a plane in the area, the sonic boom had bounced off of the upper atmosphere and back down again. Anyone else getting a swamp gas vibe here?
Swamp gas from a weather balloon was trapped in a thermal pocket and refracted the light from Venus.
But what happened on Belle Island was way more than a boom. By all accounts, it was more of an electrical event. I mean, there certainly was a boom that was heard up to 60 miles away. Fun fact, the loudest sound on record is the eruption of Krakatoa in 1883, which was heard up to 3,000 miles away. But whatever happened that day not only exploded the Bickfords' TV, but lots of TVs. One of the Bickfords' neighbors, who lived about a mile away, was just minding his own business, eating a sandwich, when an 18-inch blue flame shot out of his electrical outlet.
I was standing right here by the table and the fire came out of this. I guess with electricity you call it. The fire came out, I suppose, about 18 inches out across the table here. Scared of blue fire, eh? Blue flame. The lights came on, fire came out to the socket here and then bang out that boom, eh?
Electrical transformers were blown, windows were shattered, and the smell of burning plastic permeated the air from the plastic insulation that had melted off of the electric transmission lines. Jim Farrell, the local fire investigator, jumps into action to try and assess what the hell is going on. As he travels around, he's naturally taking some pictures and collecting some samples. Jim sends his report into the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, the ever-beloved RCMP, who concludes the incident was lightning. Jim says, "I don't think so. I've never seen lightning do anything even close to this." But even if the RCMP aren't interested, others are. Within a day or two, 2 researchers from Los Alamos National Laboratory hit the ground on Bell Island, asking questions all over again. How did they even know about it? Well, a little something we have floating around high in the sky called the Vela satellite. The Vela satellite's job is to detect nuclear detonations around the world. Well, the flash of light from whatever happened on Bell Island was so bright that it measured brighter than the flash from the atomic bomb that hit Hiroshima. Naturally, this sent up a flag or two to whomever is babysitting the Vela satellite. So, Los Alamos sends Dr. John Warren, a plasma physicist with expertise in high-energy phenomena, and Dr. Robert Freeman, a weapons design engineer specializing in electromagnetic effects. They check out the scene, question everyone involved, including Darren and Jim Farrell, and tell Jim to turn over any evidence he has collected, which of course means Jim never sees any of it again. Locals say the 2 men were very secretive. Anytime they wanted to talk to each other, they would walk a few feet away and either speak in hushed tones or write out what they wanted to say on pieces of paper. They even asked Jim Farrell if he had a security clearance. Now, whether they were trying to nail down where he fit in the grand scheme of this puzzle they're trying to unravel, or they really wanted to chat with him to compare notes with a colleague, nobody knows. But after a few days, the 2 researchers take their leave, never to visit again. Thanks so much for your help, guys. So what did happen that day? Well, conventional wisdom says it was a lightning strike. And if you're thinking, no way, that was more than a lightning strike, slow your roll, because it might be true. Lightning is generally negatively charged, and only about 5 to 10% of lightning bolts are positively charged. But on very rare occasions, like 0.001% of the time, Mother Nature tosses down an ultra-powerful positively charged bolt called a superbolt just to mix things up a bit. These positively charged forces of nature can be up to 1,000 times more powerful than a regular lightning bolt, and usually only happen over oceans and seas, but have been known to strike on land in the past. This means that maybe the sphere of light that Darren saw was the ever-elusive ball lightning. And considering that Bell Island is known for its considerable stores of iron ore, maybe that was enough to warrant a little special attention from Thor on a boring Sunday afternoon. And I have to say that personally, this sounds like a very good contender as the culprit. So much of the aftermath of this event resembles some kind of electrical event. However, even though there were a few clouds in the sky that day, local meteorologists say the atmosphere that Sunday in no way supported any kind of storm activity. So while it's still possible, it's probably not likely. And if it was just lightning, why send the high energy weapons designing guys from Los Alamos? But there are other theories as well. One of the first was a cave-in of one of the iron ore mines. That could be loud, but that certainly doesn't account for the electrical events. Another is something from the Russians called the woodpecker signal. In 1978, the US and Russia were still very much wrapped up in the Cold War, with both countries doing everything they could to monitor the military actions of the other. The Russians developed the woodpecker signal, which was a very low-level radio signal that sounded something like this. That's not annoying or anything. That would bounce up into the atmosphere and allow the Russians to monitor the returns for aberrations that might signal a missile launch. The signal was so disruptive to everyone that a group of nations actually got together at the UN to demand that Russia stop broadcasting this signal. Russia pretty much said screw you and kept it up for another 10 years. Lee Tizard, an electromagnetic weapons researcher, believes this constant barrage of low radio signals accidentally created a column of electromagnetic energy known as a standing columnar wave over North America. Lee believes that the standing columnar wave created by the radio waves of the woodpecker signal collapsed, meaning all of that electromagnetic energy has to go somewhere.
It sent down 3 spinning vortices of electromagnetic energy, and that's what we believe struck, explaining the 3 holes.
That's certainly an interesting theory, but that still doesn't fit with all of the eyewitness accounts. Several accounts from across the bay talk about a beam of light from the sky that hit the island. But unlike a jagged lightning bolt, these were smooth beams like a laser. Could somebody, the United States, have been secretly testing a new laser weapon that missed its mark? Maybe, but that doesn't quite fit either. Some of those people that reported the beam of light also said they saw a sphere of light coming down inside of the beam. That's not your typical laser. And there were other strange phenomena reported. Some people said that after that boom and/or lightning, they could see and taste a metallic dust in the air floating down from the sky. And yet others, and I love this part, said the metallic dust was floating up from the ground. So what was it? Lightning? Electromagnetic energy? Lasers? Nothing really seems to fit. Although I will say, after going over everything, kind of amazes me that this story is so linked to the booms heard along the Atlantic coast in the months preceding the Belle Island boom. Belle Island seems to have been a different phenomena altogether. Like most good mysteries, the sheer volume of disparate information prevents this incident from being able to be easily categorized. But there is one report I found that is remarkably different from the others. It comes from a woman named Patricia Mary O'Neil, or, as her dad calls her, Patsy. She doesn't live on Belle Island, but her dad still does. And in July of that year, 1978, so 3 months after the Belle Island boom incident, she returns to visit her dad. On Saturday, July 22nd, Patsy decides to investigate the site of the mysterious incident that occurred just 3 months earlier. The storm clouds overhead are as ominous as her father's warning. Stay away, Patsy. No good can come from going there. But Patsy heads out anyway. She just wants to see it for herself, maybe take a couple of pictures. When she gets there, the summer grass and clover have mostly obscured any obvious signs of anything out of the ordinary. But as she moves closer, she spots peculiar indentations in the ground that are still emitting a faint, smoky odor. As she squats down to examine them more closely, she reaches out to touch the scorched earth. That's when everything changes. Intense pain suddenly explodes in Patsy's head. Her eyes feel like they're on fire. Her tongue starts to swell, and she struggles to breathe as the pressure inside her head becomes unbearable. unbearable. She thinks, I'm going to die. And the world goes dark. When she finally comes to, it's pitch black. The only light comes from the dim blue glow of her watch, which she discovers is shattered, with the second hand spinning erratically before falling off, leaving the center mechanism still spinning. Every part of her hurts as she staggers to her feet and makes her way to a nearby stump to catch her breath and rest, at least until her vision clears. After a few minutes, Patsy's feeling better, but when she goes to leave, her car is gone. Reaching into her pocket, she finds only a blob of melted metal and plastic that used to be her car keys. Disoriented and in pain, it takes her over 3 hours to walk the 5 miles back home. When she finally arrives, the house is locked up tight. After banging on the door, she hears her father's voice from an upstairs window asking who's there. When he opens the door, he looks like he's seen a ghost, and in a way, he has. Because what Patsy doesn't realize yet is that she hasn't been gone for a few hours. She's been missing for 37 days. Her car had been found abandoned. The police had searched the entire island but found no trace of her. No one had seen her leave on the ferry. She'd simply just vanished without a trace. For Patsy, it feels like only hours have passed. But she's way too exhausted to try and figure anything out that night. She just wants to go to bed. So that's what she does. But this is just the beginning of her story and her nightmares. That night, the true horror begins. She dreams of being suspended upright in some kind of restraints, able only to move her eyes. There's a device covering her nose and mouth with something running down her throat that makes her gag when she tries to dislodge it. The air around her is thick with a swirling haze that gives off a sickening stench. She tries to quell the panic rising inside by repeating in her head, "This isn't real. This isn't real." And then Patsy sees them. Creatures unlike anything she's ever encountered. Their eyes droop in sockets filled with syrupy slime. Their bodies covered in pockmarked, flaccid flesh, covered in quivering tube-like projections. From their centers, tentacle-like appendages wave back and forth like underwater plants. When these tentacles touch her, the pain is beyond excruciating. She passes out repeatedly during what seems like endless procedures, only to wake up screaming in a hospital bed in restraints at the Health Sciences Center in St. John's. And before the doctor can explain anything to her, a military officer orders him out of the room. The next day, still heavily sedated, Patsy is flown to Ottawa and quarantined at the National Defense Medical Center. She spends months there undergoing extensive physical and psychological testing, all against her will. The official story? She was struck by lightning. But Patsy overhears doctors discussing missing organs: her spleen, appendix, uterus, fallopian tubes, part of her liver, and a section of her gallbladder. And even though then she could see multiple recent incision sites on her torso, today there isn't a single scar to be found. They keep asking her questions about what she remembers from the time she was gone, and she tells them the truth. Nothing. But she doesn't tell them about her nightmares. Eventually, pressure from her family and the provincial government is strong enough to get her released. But Patsy is never the same. She moves out west, only visiting Belle Island for a few hours at a time at most. For years, she tells no one about her experience, convinced that her dreams revealed what really happened during those missing 37 days. That she had been abducted by something not of this world and used as a test subject. As the years pass by and the freshness of the experience is replaced with doubt that any of it really happened, until the day she receives an anonymous letter pointing her to an online group called Encountered, that she realizes she's not alone. There are others out there who have experienced similar things, people who understand what it's like to have pieces of yourself literally removed only to have them somehow grow back. Yup, you heard that right. Every organ that had been removed from Patsy's body grew back, leaving her with a story so incredible that no one would ever believe it, and not a shred of proof to back it up. Patsy has no idea what really happened to her over those 37 days, but she does know one thing for certain. They're out there, and they're biding their time. Patsy's encounter was published in Volume 5, Issue 2 of the NorthWord Literary Magazine. This magazine accepts both fiction and nonfiction literary works, but in looking at the other submissions in the magazine, there's no way to distinguish between the two. So, is this a fictional piece written under the banner of What If, with Belle Island as its starting point? Or is this a true accounting of an event so unbelievable that the writer's only outlet is a magazine where no one can tell the difference? This topic suggestion came from one of our wonderful in-betweeners, Casper, aka the Friendly Ghost 9078. Thank you so much for sending it my way. I had heard of this before, but I'd never dug in to find out what it was really about. And it was well worth the deep dive. If you want another strange and mysterious deep dive, click right here. Be careful out there, and I will see you here again on the In-Between.